Okay, so we're back again for another installment of Kick the Bucket. And the thing we want to cover in... What are you doing?
Sorry. Got a little carried away.
The thing we wanted to cover was a pretty, I would guess, pivotal feature of Bukkit, and that's the ability to do /home. Now, it's as of right now, I don't think we have the ability to do custom commands. Penguino's been looking into that, but we do have a pretty decent alternative to the /home experience within vanilla Minecraft with the command blocks. So this time we're going to be discussing how we can do that. Ooh, it's nice. Night. Okay. So Penguino's sleeping in the bed right now, setting his home point effectively. And we're near the spawn. So the idea is, like, we've created this spawn, obviously. We've given people the ability to come to this really nice, pretty place. But we want them to go off and have their own adventures in survival mode. And then come back to the spawn, and then be able to go back to their base with relative ease. So we had to come up with a way to sort of get that /home experience and still allow players to really not have to have any sort of issue with it. It should be pretty self-explanatory. So Peng has set his home point by sleeping in the bed. We have the spawn over there, and I think we'll go ahead and we'll start explaining how we approach this.
All right. So there's actually two methods that we've come up with, and we like one more than the other. But the idea behind it is we wanted to make a teleport pad and a book. You have your admin book, so you can show that off. But
we have a similar basic user version of this, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
And you can even type it in chat. So there's, we've made it pretty easy. So I've made this. Kind of looks like a bed, right? Yeah. But we have this portal pad thing. So if I go into the middle of this, I've made it so that it will teleport me to the bed. Now,
so this is similar to basically our spawn protection. We're running a command block that does execute detect for this particular configuration.
Yeah, this particular 3x3 setup, and it actually works in all directions. I have it set up so it will work in this configuration too, because you never know how someone's going to build one of these.
Yeah, exactly.
But anyway, let me jump on here, see how it disappear, and here I am on my bed.
Yeah, there you go. So you went away there for a second. Now, what happened when you went away? Do you want me to go through it? I can jump through it myself, I suppose.
Yeah, just jump through it and you can show them what's going on.
All right. So you notice I went through a few weird frames there, and now I've got credits rolling. I'm going to go ahead and hit escape. And I'm at my spawn point, which is a little bit different from Peng's. I'm going to get back over to Peng. But basically what we did there is we decided to, with that execute detect command, when players stand over their little bed portal pad, it teleports them into the end, and then we have a little setup in the end that teleports them over the end portal again and sends them back to their home point, because, as most of you know, if you've ever played through survival, once you have the credits roll, when you hit escape, you're returned back to your bed. So we felt that was a pretty acceptable way to get people back to their bed from any location wherever these portal pads are created.
Yep, I mean, you do have to hit escape to go through the whole, credits thing, but for the most part, after you do it the first couple times, it comes pretty easy. The book version, if you use the book, if you click on home, it's basically running a trigger. It triggers the scoreboard event, so if you want to test that out, it does the same thing, basically.
I'm just going to set my spawn point to right here just so it's easier, so I'll move away. I'll go ahead and open my book here and click home. Does basically the same thing, running the credits, hit escape, and I'm right back here.
Excellent. And the text way, if you do /help.
Yeah, this is new for me.
Okay. You'll see a lot of commands for us, but because we're admins. But if you're not an admin, if you do /trigger and hit enter, it'll say trigger, objective, set, and value. So one of the things you can do is we've set it up so that we have a variable, trigger variable for bed called TP_bed. So if you type /trigger, TP_bed, set 1.
Oh, very nice.
It's a little longer than, /home.
Right, but still effectively does the same thing. I think that's very cool.
For vanilla, I think that's pretty acceptable. Obviously, you can set that up a lot of different ways. That's not like a standard way that every server will have. Our server has it set up that way, but I think this would be a good time to switch over to the command blocks
The command
show
blocks?
you how we're achieving that.
All right, let's take a look.
So you'll probably notice that there's a lot of other pads, and we'll get into those in the other things. But anyway,
Yeah.
you see I have 4 set up here. You don't have to set them up like this. I just have them there for testing purposes.
Yeah.
And I do have 2 rows here. You have a bottom one and a top one. I'm only running the top one. That's the one we're currently using. The bottom one is the other way of doing it, which we can get into in just a moment because that one's a little more complicated.
Yeah.
Anyway, the first 4 command blocks here are those sort of toggle on and off ones, and those are checking for those 4 different configurations of the bed. So I had to do each one.
Okay, so we're looking for each configuration with each one of these command blocks. That's correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And all that does is set our scoreboard to 1, which actually we might have to change this because it looks like which one?
So while you're doing that, since there are more blocks to detect here, this string of execute detect is a little bit longer. Basically, it's detecting one block, and then when it says yes, that's true, it's going to look for the next block and say yes, that's true. So it's a lot of sort of, is that there? Yes. Is that there? Yes. Is that there? Yes. So it's doing a lot of that before it finally gets down to the end when it says that all those blocks are in the right configuration. That's when it does the scoreboard set player, and it's doing, what is this? P is nearest player.
Yep.
And it's setting TP bed to 1.
And that's more or less what we typed when we typed in the trigger command. It's basically doing the same exact thing.
Yeah.
So all this command does is TP the person to a position, which I will show you what that means in a second. And then at the very end here, it's doing a little tell raw to say teleported home, which you probably saw in your chat earlier.
Yeah.
And then the second to last one here is it's enabling the trigger. So you have, when you make a trigger, this scoreboard enables players that aren't opt to use that trigger. So we set up the trigger through, some commands, but this enables it because as soon as they use it one time, it's like a one-time use. You have to re-enable it. And for this, I don't want it to be a one-time use thing. I just want them to be able to use it all the time. So I'm just enabling it for everyone all the time.
Okay.
And then the very last one just changes their scoreboard back to 2, which I'll show you what that means in a minute. So if we want to teleport, I'll show you where this position is. So it's teleporting everyone to this position. Now, that's a static position, so we're probably wondering what that means. So if we go to spawn, we just got to go inside our thing.
Yeah. All right, so we're back at the spawn now. Okay, so it's this thing, right? Okay.
Yep. All right, so I have a end portal set up here, and the position is actually in the portal. So like you'll be teleported in this portal.
Yeah.
Which means you'll have no choice but to be teleported to the end. So we jump into the end.
Okay, there's the end for me. All right.
All right, so you arrive here. Now, if you just arrive here, nothing's going to happen because
exactly.
We have what I did was I set your TP to 2, or your teleport bed to 2. So come down here. There's a little protected area here, and we just got a plain old clock running, and it's checking if your bed is score 2.
Okay.
It teleports you to a position, and then it changes your score back to 0.
Okay, so the command operation is basically relative to the clock. So we've got a comparator clock here. And the reason we have a comparator clock is because the fill clocks will deactivate when the end becomes unloaded, which it doesn't have its own spawn chunk, so we use a regular comparator clock. So the organization of the commands is going to go from the source of the signal. So it's starting here, and it's setting this first one, TPing the player with this value of scoreboard to location, and then it's changing their scoreboard value, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So if you come back up here, let me close that back up. The position is right back here.
Okay.
In the drink. So
Yep.
if you've ever beaten the Ender Dragon, like I have, you'll know that if you jump back in the drink, you get the credits,
Yep.
and it puts you right back to where your bed was. Now I took the bed away, so it put me back in the spawn, but you get the idea. So anyway, that's basically how that works. It's not that many command blocks. It's a pretty simple concept. It's just taking advantage of the end and how the mechanic of beating the game works.
Okay, so we said that we had a couple different methods for doing this. This is the one that we've kind of settled on, using the end to send them back to the home. That one we feel is a little bit nicer, but we had another version of it. And Pang, you want to explain the other version we had?
Yeah, some of you might have seen this in another video. Basically, we're running the same 4 commands down here to detect that on and off, and you're running these commands. But the idea behind it is you're basically changing a game variable, which the game variable is keep inventory. So if your player dies, if that game variable is true, you will keep your inventory items and your experience. But that variable, that's a global like game variable. So basically, it's turning that on for everybody. So if anyone dies while that's on, they'll keep their stuff. So what we were doing was we're changing that variable to true. We are taking the player and killing them, and then giving them basically some buffer time. I think it was 3 or 4 seconds to click I accept my death and resurrect, and it will resurrect them back at their bed, and they'll keep all their stuff if they click it in time, and then it changes the game var back to false because we want to have it so if people die, there's a penalty. They lose their stuff.
I think ultimately we settled on the end portal one because it required us to not explain anything to the player. I mean, really, it's sort of jarring to be teleported to the end all of a sudden and then have credits roll, but the player has one option to hit escape, and then they're back at their bed. And then at that point, the player kind of learns it themselves, and they're kind of comfortable with it. Whereas the kill approach, we had to basically explain wherever we had these pads we basically had to teach the player, okay, you're going to die when you jump on this pad or use any sort of /home kind of equivalent. But when you do, you have to respawn, and you have to respawn quickly. So that gets kind of, if people don't understand that concept, then when they die, they might spend the exact amount of time that we're allowing them to respawn with their inventory wondering, well, what just happened? Why did I die? So they, maybe sit there and try to screenshot their coordinates. They'd try to figure something out. They'd try to chat to other players or something. And the thing that really kind of was frustrating is that it doesn't, since it's changing that game rule, it's not basically giving you a timer where after you respawn, all your stuff will drop. It literally is, if they miss that timer window, they lose everything. They lose their experience, they lose their items, they don't drop anywhere. There's really nothing that can be done about it. So we kind of ultimately felt like the user experience with the kill approach, while it could work, introduced too many opportunities where people who didn't understand the system would not be able to use it correctly and ultimately not have a good experience. So we liked the end portal approach because it seems more seamless. There's less likelihood of people who are unfamiliar with it having any issue, and we ultimately have less to moderate in that situation.
Yeah, I think this is one of the, this is one of the keys of Bukkit, right? This is when everyone thinks of a Bukkit server, the first thing they think of is essentials, or they want to be able to teleport to their friends, and they want to be able to teleport to their bed or their home and set their home. And this gives them the opportunity to have that functionality of, I can get to my bed whenever I want to, and I can, set a new, like they can just sleep in a new bed. It does add a little bit of, they can't just use a command to do it, obviously, to set their bed. But, I think that people have played Minecraft before. They can build a bed. It's not that hard. They can sleep in the bed, and they can take advantage of this in vanilla. And, I think the benefit of not having Bukkit and all that extra stuff going on, is outweighed by, simplicity. I think that this didn't take that many command blocks. I think it's very easy to use. I think it only takes 1 or 2 times for you to get it. And it doesn't really have to be explained that much. And I really like it. I think it's a very, very good solution for the set home and the home in vanilla.
The thing I'll add to it is that, like I said, there is no, you know, automatic set home command, which is available in Bukkit. But to be honest, I'm the type of player that I kind of like the ability to sort of leave survival like survival is, and not really intrude on a player's ability to experience sort of vanilla survival. So basically, I mean, really what we've set up is that people have this ability to build a bed, sleep in it, set their home point. That's all inherent within Minecraft. But if they wanted to, they could build one of these portal pads. They could obtain one of the user books or use the trigger command to teleport back to the protected areas if they wanted to. And it really doesn't intrude on their ability to experience the game how they want to. They can come into the server. If all they want is vanilla survival and they don't want to take advantage of any of the goodies we have in protected areas, they don't have to. They basically can craft a bed, head out, set their home point, they're good. But if they ever change their mind and go, you know what, I do want to take advantage of like the economy or unlocking other cities and have that ability to get around and enjoy the game world, they can just obtain these items in the world. The glowstone, wool, there's nothing special about them. We're just detecting them in this configuration. And then they can go ahead and build it in their own base. Or we have them set up in the protected areas, so they can build one of the portal pads that'll send them to the spawn, and they can go to the spawn. And then when they want to leave, they can just find one of the bed pads and send them back to their bed. All right, folks, so that'll about do it for this episode. And we're planning on the next episode. We're going to talk a little bit more about these portal pads. We kind of realized we may have glossed over a little bit of the details about the commands, the execute, detect stuff, but so our plan is to tell you, show you how we've set up all these other portal pads for different locations. Ones that are specifically locked for admins, and other ones that are open to all players, and then other ones that are unlockable, correct?
Yep, there's ones that require certain criteria to unlock them,
Yeah.
which we'll get into our treasure hunting mechanic we've introduced into our server,
Yeah.
probably in even another video, so...
Exactly. So we've kind of built in a way to give the user an experience of, they can sort of go into the cities and obtain unlockable items that'll allow them to use some of the portal pads, and it gives kind of a fun curve to it, and we'll explain that in the coming videos. Until then, later, folks.